Today's episode features Danielle Campo-McLeod. As an award-winning keynote speaker, mental health expert, and coach renowned for her expertise in leadership, resilience, and fostering connections, as a celebrated Paralympian and recipient of the Order of Ontario, Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal, Terry Fox Humanitarian Award, and a Canadian National Hero Honor. Danielle brings over 2 decades of experience as a thought leader and resiliency expert, and as a former Canadian national team swimmer myself, I'm excited for you to hear this episode.
I love your Donovan Bailey story, and I wish that mine was like some amazing athlete. So this is like probably one of my most embarrassing moments.
Even though I had found something that I enjoyed, I found it really hard to transition that competitiveness into the business world.
Seeing our community come together because I had put that time in.
Right.
So that's when I was like, I gotta give back.
To Cracking the Success Vault with Spectre Financial here. We are kind of joined by the fabulous Danielle Campo-McLeod. Campo-McLeod.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about this conversation. Obviously, we met maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
Yes.
Through the Windsor Transportation Club. And I don't think you knew that we had swum together, but after someone pointed you in the direction of us for a speaking engagement at one of our events, I kind of put 2 and 2 together.
Yes.
But yeah, let's start off. Just tell me a little bit about your story, sort of how you grew up with your family, where you grew up, and kind of what led you into the swimming world in the first place. That's where I want to start because you and I have that big thing in common. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, I grew up here in Windsor-Essex County, so it's always a fight between Tecumseh and Windsor. I was born in Windsor, raised in Tecumseh, and now living in Windsor again. So we give credit all across Windsor-Essex County. I grew up with 2 older brothers, both big into sports. They're 5 and 6 years older than me. So the story goes, when I was born, Mom was thrilled to have a little girl in the family. But kind of noticed something wasn't quite right when I started to meet my developmental milestones. I was falling all the time. I was asking to be carried. So long story short, brought me to the doctor. My dad's flat-footed, so my mom, like wives do, blamed it on my father and said she's probably flat-footed just like her dad. But the doctors actually diagnosed me with muscular dystrophy at the time. So huge life-changing diagnosis.
Right.
And so my parents really had to figure out, how do we take this, shattered pieces and kind of put the puzzle back together. And so I went into the water as a form of physiotherapy.
Oh, wow.
That's
okay.
where it started.
That's where it started. Interesting. And so for those people who are watching at home and don't know, what exactly is muscular dystrophy?
Yeah, so muscular dystrophy is a neuromuscular disorder that there are now over 600 different types. And for me, it was the type that I was diagnosed with at the time was just really caused a lot of muscle weakness and a lot of muscle pain, especially in my legs. So made things like running and jumping and all that kind of stuff difficult. So going into the pool strengthened those muscles.
Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting. And so starting in the pool, sort of what age, 4, 5,
Yeah, it's
6?
about 4 or 5, just, for fun and therapy and getting to see that I actually had that same competitive drive that my older brothers had. Started to do more of like a local summer swim team and kind of test that competition, and actually said to my parents, like, I love to race. I want to keep racing. And so it progressed from there.
Yeah. And so was it any one thing that sort of triggered you to want to go for that Olympic dream? Like for me, I remember I think I was like 7 at 96 Olympics, watching Donovan Bailey win his medal, 100 meter. And I was like, man, that's really cool. And then you're still seeing all these swimmers swimming at the same time, right? So was there any one thing like that kind of pushed you into competitive, or was it just that you noticed that you were just competitive all the time?
Yeah, I love your Donovan Bailey story, and I wish that mine was like some amazing athlete. So this is like probably one of my most embarrassing moments. When people ask me this, I was in a mall with my mom, and I saw a sweatsuit, and it said Sydney on it. And I said to my mom, like, why does it say Sydney? And she said, oh, the Olympics after Atlanta will be in Sydney. And I was like, I could get that sweatsuit if I went to the Olympics. She was like,
Wow.
I will buy you that sweatsuit today and you could have a goal of going to the Olympics. And literally it was funny. Like I still remember the floor. It was a Roots sweatshirt and the wood floor and the way.
Yeah.
And I just remember it something clicking of like, I love the water and I love the way I feel in the water and I love competing. And it was like almost that sweatsuit. Now we joke was kind of saying to my parents, like, you're going to spend thousands of dollars on an athletic career. But it was that like thing for me that was like, wait, I could wear that sweatsuit. And that kind of started this isn't just fun. This is something I really want to achieve.
Yeah, that's kind of unique because I think a lot of people always have a goal in mind or they don't know what they want to go after. And for you, it was like, you're telling me that I could go there and have this thing. Like that's kind of a
it was always
unique story.
And I was growing up in a time where the Paralympics weren't really known.
Right.
So even I was still kind of learning. And I was the first one in my family to be diagnosed with a disability. And so I was still learning, what does that even mean? And so that sweatsuit actually started that like, wait, so you might not go to the Olympics, but parallel to the Olympics are the Paralympics. And you can reach that goal and that dream. And so really just kind of shattered those limits of what you can do with a disability.
Right. And so growing up, did you feel a lot of limitations then with muscular dystrophy? Because obviously you weren't able to do some of the things other kids could do and other things like that. Did you have this sense of, say, you know, I can still do it. It might be tougher, might be more challenging, but I still want to be like other kids? Or did you just like recognize that it was going to be very difficult to be like everyone else?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I definitely knew that I had maybe a more difficult time, or there were some things that I couldn't do the same as other kids. And oftentimes I'd have a lot of adults around me, never my parents, never my older brother saying you can't do this, but outside being like, oh, you know, let's help her carry her boots or help her do this. And I'd be like, I'll find my own way to do that. Like, you know, my brothers never, ever treated me like that. If anything, it was the opposite. I was on the football field with them flying through the tackles and things like that. And my parents would always be like, find a way to do it. You know, when I'd fall, my parents would be like, okay, find a way to get back up. So at home it was one way, and then you'd leave and you'd go into the like real world of people would just cater to you. And it used to fuel me to be stronger. Like, I don't want you to see me as somebody that can't do this. I want you to see me as somebody who found a way to do it.
Right. And is that something that you have felt that you have transitioned into being a mother now, being in business for yourself after your career, that's still sort of the same mentality that you have?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's come with me through every struggle, through every, you know, every success that I've had. It's that, you know, that message of you have to just be your best and not worry about the definition of the best, you know. And I always tell people, leave it in the pool. If you've left, you know, that perfect race and it didn't make it to that gold medal podium, but you knew you did all you could do, that's kind of how I live each day of it's just got to be your best.
Yeah. And it's an interesting take because swimming it's a very individual sport. At times there's also the team aspect of it, but you can absolutely have your best race of your life and still not win.
Absolutely.
And many people can view that as, I know lots of athletes that I've competed with and against, you know, even though they have their best race, it wasn't good enough because they didn't win. But like, it can still be good enough because it was your best in that moment.
Absolutely. I think swimming is one of the unique sports that you can look down all 8 lanes of the pool and see people celebrating and they've touched 8th and you're like, what the heck? But it's because it's exactly that. You're racing against your best. And yes, of course, people have goals to go to the Olympics or make the team. But I always think of Olympic trials. You see Olympic trials, they take the top 2. But 3 and 4, yeah, they're mad that they didn't make that team. But they're also like, okay, I just swam a best time by a second. What more could I have done?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I've had conversations with people in the past and I've always found that like maybe American NCAAs is probably more like the fastest swim meet in the world because you don't have that. You don't have only the top 2 from every country that gets to go. And a lot of those athletes do train in the United States in college. And NCAA's is just one of those things where like all, the top 16 could probably all go to the Olympics,
Absolutely.
but they can't. It's,
Exactly.
there's like 4 of them.
Right.
And I mean, Americans are super fast, just like every other country, but the American final can sometimes be the Olympic final.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And those guys are making best times and breaking records, but not able to fulfill that dream that they have of going to the Olympics. Right. So as someone who's now in the business world and giving speeches and stuff like that, what would you say to athletes that are top 10, top 15 in the world, but not able to crack through because there's somebody else ahead of them like that?
Yeah, I think you have to define your best each and every day. I always, when you're trying to strive to be the best, it can change in a split second because there's somebody always else out there, doing the same thing, going after their best. So I always tell athletes and anybody, right? You've got to stay grounded in what is going to make me feel like, hey, I did the best that I could do, and truly sit in that. It's one thing to say that, but to actually sit in it and say, if I do this, this, and this, and I execute that perfectly, and I'm still not on the top of that podium, or I'm not on the Olympic team, I'm still going to be okay with it. And so I think that's a hard lesson to learn. I think it's a hard thing because secretly in there, I think the flame to, want to be the best is what we've been taught to do. But that pride is still there, right? And that knowing that you've put the work in and knowing that, you've swam the laps or done whatever it is to do it. So that
I think I can relate to that, I think, because I think I was always the person in my swim career that tried to chase being the best person. And I came up short. My race obviously was the 1500. We had an Olympic time of, I think, 15:13 at the time. And I went like 15:16, give or take. And over the course of a 15-minute race, to miss something by 3 seconds is so minuscule, right? But it was a best time. Like I shattered my best time by like probably 10 or 15 seconds to do that.
Right.
But I still didn't get to go.
Right.
Right. And it's one of those heartbreaking things. So let's talk a little bit and transition from swimming to business world. So myself personally, when I retired, I had this really hard time distinguishing between success and achievement. And I had someone tell me once that the two things are not the same. They are very different. You can still succeed at something, but not achieve the things that you wanted to achieve. And I had about an 18-month, say, I'll call it a depression, just unsure of what I wanted to do. When you transitioned from swimming and retired and moved into the business world, did you have that? Was it a hard period of time to, like, what was your sort of story like? Because I know what mine was.
Yeah. So definitely hard. Definitely. I remember sitting at my desk. I, after swimming, became a social worker, and I was sitting at my desk one day, and like the realization hit me in the face that I'm never going to get the world record for the best social worker. And I was like, what the heck? Like, how do I have trained and measured and like gone through? And so I really had to go back and spend some time on defining that for myself of my best, right? And really looking at those bronze medals and looking at, some of my greatest memories and my greatest, achievements in the water, and take those lessons to say, okay, so how do I pull this into real life? First of all, the hardest transition was when I wanted to nap. Nobody cared. Nobody wanted to let me nap. So I was like, what do you mean I can't just take a break? So learning like what the real world is versus living in Team Canada Olympic world for a while, that was a transition in itself. But then, really just focusing on those, okay, like what is going to like fuel me? And it needed to become internal instead of external. And that was one of the biggest lessons that I learned is I just need to know I did this and I'm okay with the results, right? That I've put the work in and that it isn't going to come in a 4-year training cycle, or it isn't going to come in the accolades of, when you have a great day at work, there's no media showing up at your house to interview you about that. That was the world I lived in, right? When you had a great day in the pool, media was there to talk to you. When you did a great job as a social worker, they were like, okay, See you tomorrow.
I don't want to say nobody cared.
Right.
But
Yeah.
It feels like
it
nobody
was a
cares.
different measuring stick, right? They were like, great job. See you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right.
And so how did you transition then from swimming, social worker, and then social worker to where you are now? Like, what were the steps? Was it after putting in that thought for yourself? Did you always know that you wanted to get on stage and speak? Did you always know that you wanted to do the public stuff that you do now? Or did it just kind of transition over the course of time?
I definitely knew I wanted to have a greater impact. I felt thankful for the struggles that I had gone through, because I know that in those struggles, I got to be resilient. I got to, test my strength, and I felt like I had to use that. So I was lucky to have the skills in the water and be a great athlete. But then I also knew that I could share my story, and I could, get on a stage and be comfortable to connect with audiences and be able to share those, personal details, that I could see the impact that, time and time again, when I get off stage, people will come up and say, I just so needed to hear that. And so for me, it felt like it was a bigger purpose. It was, yes, I was doing great things as a social worker, but it was also like, wait, I can have a bigger impact. I can make this pain that I've gone through have such a greater purpose. And so it just kind of escalated from there. And then for me, the biggest push was when I did get sick after the birth of my third child, seeing our community come together because I had put that time in.
Right.
So that's when I was like, I gotta give back.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting you bring that up, because I want to say maybe, obviously the pregnancy didn't go the way that you wanted it to go and everything. I can kind of relate to that with my wife just recently having a baby, but I saw a picture. I don't know how it came about. I don't know if you reshared it or something, about you coming home from the hospital and your son touching your forehead or whatever.
Yes.
Talk about that a little bit. Like what happened? I don't know if everybody knows what happened, but what happened and how did that moment sort of change things?
So I had two beautiful, healthy baby boys at home. They were 4 and 2 at the time. And then I went in August of 2021 to have my daughter. Her birth was actually perfect. But what happened was my third C-section, and I ended up with a severe sepsis infection. So I was in the hospital for 29 days. And then I went home for just a few hours and was back in the hospital for another 3 months. And when I went back to the hospital, the infection was so severe that I ended up in a medically induced coma on life support with only a 10% chance of survival. So it went from like, oh, this was a beautiful thing, we're bringing our baby girl home, to my husband being like, oh my God, you're not coming home.
Right.
And how are we going to navigate that? So, so it was totally unexpected, not, waking up on life support still to this day. I will never forget that. And being like, I've got a choice to make. I either choose to say like, oh, why me, and sit in this depression and let this infection take over, or I choose to say, try me and get the hell out of my body. And I started the fight of my life.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting you say that, because I think there's a lot of, I don't want to say that. I was watching a video the other day, and the gentleman talked about most people have to hit rock bottom before they're willing to change or willing to do something. And I'm not saying that that's rock bottom for you, but it's interesting. I think as athletes, we, over the span of our career and competing and the challenging times that happen, and I think even in the business world probably too, where there are times where you just have to be like, okay, well, this just happened. Well, I have two choices.
Absolutely.
I can give up, or I can just keep pushing.
Yeah.
Right. And it might be really tough. It might not be the way I wanted it to go, but we're just going to keep pushing forward.
Right.
And so do you think that the swim career, or the way that you were raised with your brothers and them not treating you any differently, do you think those things contributed to how you reacted in that moment?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we hear that you got to hit that rock bottom or whatever, and we define what it is until it actually defines it for ourselves, right? So, it wasn't rock bottom in terms of, that I made choices or whatever, but it 100% was my rock bottom. It was the sickest, lowest I've ever been, where I was like, I got to use every struggle, every strength, every tool I've got. And so, absolutely. What it taught me was that all the struggles that we do go through give you that tool bank of resiliency to say, hey, I've been through those things and I can get through that. You know, waking up on life support, none of my muscles working was my greatest nightmare. So kind of having to push through that. And, you know, funny enough, in my 11 to 12 days I was in the coma, I went back in my mind to swimming. I was literally swimming lap after lap. So I was like, I can do this. I know how to do this. Same as the life support machine. The vent makes the same sound as a snorkel. You know, as swimmers, we train with snorkels. So I was like actually taking some comfort in like, hey, I've done this. And then I will never forget one day at 3 a.m, laying in my hospital bed, I was like, oh no, we're making the choice to be a fighter and to share this story, not to say, well, then my life took this turn and that's why it's the way it is. I was like, well, we'll redefine what success looks like and we'll keep on pushing through. And I almost had to be my own coach in those moments to be like, there's no audience, there's no medals, there's no coaches. You're just going to take one step tomorrow and then one more step the next day and rebuild.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I think I have always had that coach person, someone who, you know, believed in me more than I believed in myself. Do you think it was easier or harder to make that transition into, you know what, there is no coach, there is no person, I just have to do it myself? Yeah,
I think it was harder because I think I had every excuse. Everybody would have been like, oh, it's okay, right? Definitely my husband was, you know, my external coach, I would say, because he was like, don't you dare leave me with 5 kids. I'll kill you myself. So yeah, that was always like, but more so it was like, it was that internal drive to say, we can get over this, right? We can get through this. And I think of in business, how many times you go out to do something and you think it's going to go one way and it's like, okay, pivot. You know, it's those sleepless nights, those figuring out. And it's so connected to just saying one step at a time. Right? What can I control right now? Yeah.
And I think that, and I love the fact that you bring that to business because there's that saying that most people, they overachieve or they overbelieve what they can accomplish in 1 year, but they underachieve what they think they can do in 10. Right?
Right.
Because they don't give themselves time to compound the successes from 1 year after another. Right. But they also think that they can just out of the gates, just, I'm going to make $1 million this year in my first year in business. Most businesses don't do that, right? Most fail after 3 years. They're not making 7 figures. How did that correlate to coming out of the hospital, going through health, trying to recover, business? You were already a little bit more established in the public eye and speaking and stuff like that at the time. What was that process like, getting back to where you were prior to being in the hospital?
Definitely was a journey. I definitely redefined, and I love what you say about that. Like, you know, with the first year and then looking forward. And for me, it was about that. It was looking at what impact can I have and how can I, you know, continue to make this successful in terms of, you know, my story getting out there and building that forward, and knowing that it was okay. Like I had this idea prior to everything that it had to be that Olympic finish every time, right? Where then I was like, wait a minute, if in 10 years from now, I can look back and say, oh, I did 10 speaking gigs that year, and then I added one more the next year, or, you know, I was able to do some more coaching, or then had this business idea and now it's growing into this. And so I said, like, I want to look back and say that this is what I've done. And so how am I going to define success in these 6 months? And what's that going to look like over the next year and over the next 5 years? And just always being grateful that, you know, I have my health and I have my family, and really will go through whatever, you know, happens.
Yeah, I don't doubt that it's easy to be grateful and thankful every day waking up after something like that. I mean, that's not something most people have to experience.
Right.
And I'm glad that you got through it.
Yeah, me too.
For sure. I mean, I don't know what I would do in a situation like that. Like, I've never had that kind of a health incident or health scare or anything like that, right?
Like, swimmer, you'd go through it.
Yeah, you're probably right.
You put yourself through that voluntarily,
probably
time and time again.
Yeah, voluntarily put myself through it. That is very true. Okay, and so are you a person then that you're talking about 6 months here and the next 6 months in terms of success and that kind of thing? Are you a person that sets goals? Are they finite goals that you have to hit them? Are they kind of more infinite goals that you might not get them this year, but you might get them in 10 years? Or are you a person that just doesn't really care about the goal that's written on a piece of paper?
Right. No, I think I'm a little bit of everything. I definitely think you have to have some direction. You have to have some goals for yourself. But I also think you have to have the courage to ask yourself why and really, truly listen to the answers, as opposed to, it's so easy when you don't hit a goal to blame everything else outside that's going on. Right. But why didn't I hit that goal the first time? Right. Was it not enough attention in one area? Was it looking at, what did I do? And any time that I start to answer that question with, well, they didn't, I stop myself and go, wait a minute, what can I control and what didn't I do? Or what do I need to do differently? Sometimes I did everything I could do and it just needed to be, different or go a different route. And so I think that's my main thing, is looking at, if you don't set those goals, you don't have that measuring stick. And I think it's easy to then kind of blame outside, right? So I set those goals, and if I don't achieve them, I use them as motivation to, what do I got to change and how do I got to, get excited to then achieve them.
Right. And so do you feel then that if you set a goal and you don't achieve it, do you have a process that you go through? Because I've done this similar to you in the past, where you have a goal, you don't hit it, and then the first thing is maybe you blame other people. And they're like, okay, well, I can't control them, but I can control me. So what things could I change? And then I go through it and be like, okay, well, I might be able to change those things, but is this a goal that I actually want to have?
Right.
Because I think a lot of people, especially in business or success or athletes or whatever, it doesn't matter really what it is, but whether it's other people telling us that we should be doing these things, or our parents telling us that we should be these people, or our friends telling us that we should be these kinds of people. Do you have a process that you go through? And have you ever gotten to the point where you're like, yeah, that goal's probably just not something I really care about and I have to pivot?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that process of making sure that you're defining your idea of success and not external idea of success or what you should be achieving, right? I think we spend so many times in the should be's. And I think definitely this relates to parenting. I pull this from parenting all the time. I should be doing this with the kids, or I should be doing this. And it gets you to start spiraling, right? Of all the things I should be doing. And so when I look from a business standpoint at my goals, and I kind of look at, okay, what do I want out of this? What was the purpose of that goal? What was my why? And if that why still relates with me, then I go to, okay, how are we going to achieve that? And if not, then sometimes it's redefining it. And did I let the outside noise kind of take over? I remember having this ridiculous idea of what success was going to look like in my speaking business, and then stepping back and going, that actually means I'm not with my family at least 2 days a week, every week for the entire year. Yeah. And I was like, that's an unrealistic goal. So, and I don't need that. For me, success is that they know who their mom is. I didn't fight to survive to not raise them. Right. So I was like, So I think I go through that process of whose success is this, right? And how, and it needs to be what resonates with me and my family and how I define that this is going to be success.
And is that something that you and Denny are always on the same page on? I mean, obviously there's going to be times where you might want something and he doesn't really care too much about it, or he wants something and vice versa. Is this something you guys as parents are always on the same page on? Is it things you compromise on?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, I think from a parenting aspect, we should have been doing this or we should be doing this, is so easy to get lost in that, because I'm like, okay, like screen time is a perfect example. Yeah. They shouldn't be on screen time, but I'm like, sometimes the reality is I have a body that doesn't always function the way I need it to. Sometimes I need them to be sitting still and not playing soccer in my living room, right? So sometimes, and then it's funny with business and goals like that, I always know if I'm afraid to tell him my next goal that I have to look inside and be like, wait, is this aligning? Because probably my greatest weakness is that I have so much ambition and not enough hours in the day. So I want to kind of achieve everything. And so we do sit down and we always talk about, how is this going to work for the family? How does this work? And do we see, and my husband is fantastic at bringing that whole picture in. Yeah. So when he gets really excited about something, then I'm always like, okay, this is a great idea. Right. And then when he's challenging more, it motivates me more to show him like how this is going to turn out. And then he's my greatest cheerleader and also the first person there to pick me up when I fall. And I think that is so important. Right. You have to have that circle of people that you can connect with.
Right. Yeah, no, I can understand that. I mean, as someone who's new to the parenting world, I mean, my son is 6 months old in a couple of days. Man, trying to siphon through all of the articles over here, there's this article over there, and like this one tells you the opposite of that one.
Sleep
and you're
on
like,
your back, sleep on your stomach, sleep on your side.
What is the right thing to do?
Right.
And sometimes, my wife and I, we really just have to sit down and be like, okay, like who is our son, right? Who are we as parents? And like, are we going to go with this or that, or are we going to do our own thing? And I think there's a lot of power in just being like, you know what, like everybody has, there's a argument to be made for all the sides. It doesn't matter what it is. What do we want to do, right? We've had lots of people talk to us about like sleep training our kid. And my wife's just like, I just don't feel comfortable with him screaming and crying. And I'm okay with that, right?
Yeah.
And does it come with its challenges? Yeah, because you're going to have to pick him up and soothe him and put him back to sleep and stuff like that. We had a pretty rough night last night. But like you said, it's understanding what do you want to be and what does that success look like to you in that avenue.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about a little bit about, let's say, some failures.
Okay.
So have there been some instances in your life, whether career, whether swimming, where you thought you were doing the right thing and you weren't? And how did you say, okay, that thing's not the thing for me, prior to understanding goals and whether they were for you or not for you? And did you have like a mentor that helped walk you through it? Or was it something that you just did it on your own?
Yeah, no, definitely never like on my own. I think I've always been really lucky to have a lot of incredible people in my corner. Kind of, I think like I talk about those people that are your, true people that you can really trust that want what's best for you. So my mom, I definitely has been one of those people. I kind of laugh when I think about this because I probably left the swimming world 2 years too early. I left.
Too early?
Yeah. So I left in 2006 because I was just in my head done, right? I had, gone to college. I was in college and I was getting a taste of what like regular college life is, and saying like, I don't want to wake up every day at 4 anymore. And so my mom always said, are you sure? Like, are you sure you're not, you're ready to leave? And I was like, yeah, I've got it all planned out. I'm going to swim my last race in, it was like Portland or something. It wasn't even a big deal. My mom was like, it just doesn't match you. Like, I thought you'd want to go to one more Olympics or, all this training to just kind of like touch the wall and walk away. And I was adamant, like, I'm done. And so I walked away. And like years later, I was like, that wasn't how I wanted. Like now when I look back, I'm like, I should have,
one regret, maybe?
My one regret was, I probably had one more Olympics in me and one more way of ending it kind of my way. I had a coach leave and I was mad. And so I was like, that's it, So from swimming way, that was kind of my thought there. I laugh because I listen to you talk about your 6-month-old baby. And I mean, there's a million parenting fails. And, I think the greatest lesson you can learn as a parent is in the repair. You're going to always do a million things that you wish you could do better, but you always have a chance to start over. And I literally schedule it in my calendar on the 15th of every month. I call it my parenting reset. And I literally get to tell myself like, okay, there's no world record for the best parent. And maybe you did this, and this month, and we're going to do better at, showing up. We're better at, not yelling. Let me tell you, Sean, when they get to that toddler stage and beyond. So I always give myself that like option to kind of do better.
Yeah.
And then I think in my failures have been whenever I've kind of navigated away from what is true to me.
Mm-hmm.
What do I want my business to represent? What do I want? You can get caught up in the Hollywood of things when you're, out there on stages and all that. So really staying grounded in what is true to me. And when I've kind of left that, that's when I've been like, that's not, I've always kind of had to navigate back to where do I want to be?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because my mom had the same thing. So I have always found that when I quote unquote failed in the swim world, there was like 3 times that it happened. And typically it was all because I was overconfident. I was super cocky about what was happening. Training was going well. And so you didn't prepare for the thing the way you should have prepared because everything was going right. And it didn't matter what you do. You were, touching gold, and it just felt like stars were aligning. This is going to be great. I don't have to continue to work hard. Mm-hmm. And then you'd go to the competition that you needed to be at and you'd bomb. Mm-hmm. And I'd always go home and I'd like sit on the couch and I'd mope around for a few days. And my mom would always be like, so are you done? And I just wouldn't answer her. I'd be like, I don't know. And she'd be like, well, if the answer is not yes, you're just upset. Mm-hmm. You're going back. Are you done? No, I don't know. Okay, well, you're going back. And then when it came time for me to actually retire, I was spinning in circles, and I had the opposite experience you did, where I actually think I probably retired 2 or 3 years later than I should have, to be honest. By the time I got there, I was spinning in circles trying to go somewhere that I wasn't going for a few years now. And it wasn't until I was at an event listening to a guy named Ed Milet speak, and I was just like, man, that feels like me. And for the next week I went home and I was just like, yeah, you know what? I could pack it in or I could sleep in, and I could tell my coach that, the alarm didn't go off. And when really it was like, no, I'm hitting snooze and I'm just going back to bed. And I had never had that for 15 years, 20 years. I'd never been like, I'm not going to practice today. And so it was really weird for me to just like all of a sudden be like, no, I'm done. And then when I chose to retire, I remember calling my mom and she's like, are you sure? Like the Olympics are only, 18 months away. Like, are you really sure you want to do this? And I was like, yeah, like I'm just done. I don't think I can make it. I'm done. It's just not for me anymore. And it was actually kind of like interesting to see how it all sort of came about the other direction. But it was weird that our parents had the same thing. Like, are you, are you sure?
Sure. Yeah.
It's interesting to think back now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny how it just kind of, it takes its own pathway. And I think and that is a lesson that I've carried with me always, is whenever I'm ready to like jump out of something, because I just ended my swimming career, I always kind of navigate that of like, wait a minute, like, is it really, is this right? Am I done with this? Or is it that I'm just uncomfortable with this? Because my story was similar. Like I had karting my whole time and I was at risk of losing it. And so I was like, nobody's going to tell me I'm not a good swimmer. So I'm going to retire, like show you. And well, who did I show? Like, me. So yeah. Yeah,
that's crazy. And so let's talk about mentors then, because you mentioned you've always had somebody outside of your mom. Has there always been a coach? Did you have the same coach the whole
I did not. Career? No, I had from 98 to 2000, I had one coach. And so he was here in Windsor, and actually just 6 months before the 2000 Olympics, he moved, which was like crazy. So trying to navigate all of that. And he moved over to the States, and I was only 15 at my first Olympics. So in my head, I was like fully on, I'm moving to the States. My parents were like, yeah, no, you're going to finish high school. So I kind of bounced around, and then I was lucky to always have the consistency with Team Canada, having those coaches. And then when I finished high school training for my second Olympics, I went out to McMaster, and I went to university there for just half a semester. And then actually met up with my very first coach who was in Calgary, and that pulled me to swim for the University of Calgary. So getting to kind of swim full circle back under my first coach, Scott. Yeah. And Scott was definitely one of my mentors in terms of he never, ever made excuses. Like, you showed up, you did the work, and together we were able to achieve some pretty amazing accomplishments in terms of getting my body so healthy and ready to train, and did a lot of work on I call them the life lessons that you take from the pool, right? That, and always around the other athletes around me, for sure. I think it was always about seeing people putting in the hard work, and, you know, those people that would show up early and stay late to the pool. But then in my business career, it was really about watching the way certain people made other people feel. And that's where I was like, that's what I want to be remembered for. Not that they may remember my name or my titles or awards I've won, but they'll remember how I made them feel. And I had one supervisor that was incredible at just meeting you where you were and seeing, you know, how you did that. And so I really took that as, that's what I want my legacy to be, is that people know that I made them feel better and I sparked something inside of them to do the same. And so that's, every time I get on stage, I think about that. They're going to forget my name, but I want them to remember how I made them feel.
Yeah. And is that something you got from, like, you say a supervisor, then how they made you feel and stuff like that? Were you ever big into the, call it, personal development world, going to different events and like weekend things or like seminars? Like, were you that kind of a person growing up?
Yeah, not really. I was always so busy to ever have the time. Yeah. I think I see the importance of it now, like the importance of just kind of shutting all the noise down and realigning with, you know, myself, and making sure that I'm, you know, and taking time to connect with my husband, and making sure, like, all of those areas. Yeah. I never did that, a lot of that, like, as I was starting new in my career. But I definitely think as the noise gets louder in our world right now, it's so important to do that. And it always makes me laugh because I am a coach. And now I'm like, yeah, I never did that. And I wish I probably would have, right? Like, I wish I would have done a little bit more. I think that transition into something new is easier when you really know yourself. Right. And I think of us leaving the swimming career, we were swimmers. That's what we knew, right?
Yeah, that was a weird time for me. I'd already started in financial services, and I loved it. But even though I had found something that I enjoyed, I found it really hard to transition that competitiveness into the business world. Right. Because there is no finish line. There is no, you know, train for this period of time, and this is the thing you're going for, and this is the cutoff. Right. You know, Simon Sinek's book I relate a lot to with the infinite game, where there are certain games like baseball and swimming and, you know, sports in general, where there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. Right. You know, we know how to score points. We know who wins at the end of the day, but life is not that. Life is not, and business is not a finite game. You know, it's infinite. It will continue to go. And if you think you're ever going to win the game, you're not, and you're probably in the wrong spot. You know, the game's probably going to reverse on you and, you know, teach you a few lessons that you needed to learn along the way. Right. So yeah, I found transitioning out of swimming into the business world, for me, it was just the competitiveness that was hard to transition. I don't know if it was like making excuses for myself, but I found it really hard because in the pool, we were always in control. You were in control of how hard you trained and how much recovery you did and all that kind of stuff. But in the business world, like, other people get to make decisions too, whether they want your business, whether they want your product, whether they, you know, whatever. And you just had to, like, you know, I can only do my best. But it took me so long to be like, I can do my best, and if it's not the right thing for somebody, it's not the right thing for somebody. And so finding that competitiveness was really difficult for me. And I don't know if you found sort of the same.
Yeah, I think having a direction to put that, right, was definitely, and I still do. Like, I still find there's times where I'm like, that speaker is getting these gigs or this person is doing that, where I'm like, right, but I'm not that person, right? Or,
or I want to spend more time at home with the kids.
Exactly.
Or whatever. Right?
Yeah. So, and I think that's just defining that. Like, I think are some days where I literally remind myself probably 10 times a day, like, this is right where I'm supposed to be. And I literally will take my shoes and socks off, and people will laugh at me, but they'll know, like, oh, she's got a lot going on, when I'm like, I am literally grounded in this meeting. So I am supposed to be right here. I am not thinking about, the 8,000 other things I have going on, that I know I need to do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And so one of the things that I started doing for me with this competitive stuff is really just focusing where I am. And so I went back to those, like, okay, I won those gold medals. I got those world records, because when I was in the pool, I was in the pool and nothing else really mattered, right? And so if I could give that much attention to that, then I can be in the meeting that I'm at, giving that much attention to the meeting that I'm in. Right. And so that's kind of helped me, and then have to find ways. Like, my kids will always joke, like, even playing Candyland, they're like, Mom, you don't have to win every time. And I'm like, I got to get to the rainbow first. Right.
Yeah.
And we joke about it, but it's like, but it's okay to want to be there first. Right. It's okay.
Yeah. It's not a bad thing.
No,
to
absolutely.
want to win,
No.
whether it's winning for you, winning for your family, winning for your business, whatever. It's not a bad thing. And I think in today's society, I would say there's a huge stigma around wanting to win, wanting to achieve financial success or whatever, because everybody believes that you should just be happy.
Right. Yeah. And I think that is so something that I've learned through all of this, is that absolutely happiness and joy and all of that are so important, but they also can run parallel to struggles. And it doesn't have to be, I feel so happy because nothing is going wrong. It can be, hey, there's some shit going on over here, but, like, I'm also really great and happy over here, and that's okay too, right? Like, you're exhausted, your baby didn't sleep last night, you're tired, but we're also here being like, great, we get to connect and we get to do this, and it can run parallel. And I think when we think it has to be all or nothing, we get into this dangerous spiral.
Yeah. Jason and I talk a lot about, like, in our world, it's, helping a family or doing a deal or, whatever. Where it's like, if you don't close something, or you thought you were going to close something, you didn't close for whatever reason, so many people can just shelter back and be upset for a few days. And it's kind of like, well, like, that's okay. Like, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some, but, like, just 5 minutes later, walk it off. You can be upset for 5 minutes, but move on, right? Just, what's the next person to go talk to? Who's the next person to go help? What's the next deal to go right? Because there are an endless amount of things out there. And just because one didn't go your way doesn't mean the next one's not going to go your way.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, we are getting close to the time. What is next for Danielle and her family?
Wow, what's next? We are going to survive progress reports coming home from school next in a couple of days. Just enjoying getting ready for the holiday season. Super busy, and
you've been traveling a lot.
I have been traveling a lot, so I'm all over the country, and so grateful. Every time a new speaking opportunity comes, I literally take a moment to just be like, I am so grateful for this. I'm working on a new book. So there's lots going on and lots of new kind of adventures that I'm really excited, working out a new business that's just kind of growing. So it'll be very exciting to see the next chapter. It definitely doesn't slow down, but I will definitely take some time, to be present, and just really excited.
Can you talk about that business?
Maybe that's a next podcast.
Maybe a next podcast. Where did the idea stem from? From one of the other businesses that you have?
Yes.
One of the other engagements that you have?
Yes. So one of the other businesses that kind of have let a gap. Every time I get off stage, I've been meeting with people that have said, I need more of this, and I want to know more of how to do this. And I was like, well, surely that has to be out there. And it wasn't. So I'm going to look at, putting that together, and so I'm really excited. It's very exciting times. It's very, very fast paced and a lot of growing, but a lot of different kind of, we're calling them the tentacles out there right now. And so, we'll just enjoy kind of it's a real big family thing right now. And that's really exciting.
That's good. That's really good.
I like leaving you like guessing. So
I know. I'm really curious.
I know.
I love ideas.
Yeah.
Jay and I have so many of them.
Yeah.
Every time we're like in a room spitballing ideas, I'm like, oh yeah, let's do that thing.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. And I was going to ask you one more question, but I'll leave it for a second. You mentioned lots of growing. There's a saying out there that you're either growing or you're dying. Is that something you kind of believe in?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're learning every day in every opportunity and growing. Yeah. I mean, as a mom, as a wife, as a business owner and leader, and, just, yeah.
Either getting better or we're not getting better. But
Absolutely.
There's no plateau.
There's no plateau.
Up the hill, down the hill.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, fair enough. So our last question, we always ask every single person.
Okay.
You've talked a little bit about it today already, but I'm curious to know, give me 1 or 2 sentences on what success is for Danielle.
Ooh, what is success? Success for Danielle is, I would say, never stopping, continuing to connect before I collect from people, and continuing to just learn more, grow more.
Yeah. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. Connect before collecting.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. Where'd you come up with that?
It's been something that I've kind of had as my tagline for a long time, of something that I believe in. Definitely when I was sick, you are just a person that everybody just needs to collect from, right? They need your numbers, they need your thing. And I was like, it was those people like the amazing PSW that I had that would say, "Hi, Danielle, how are you?" And so I was born in the hospital where I was like, it's so important that we just connect before we collect from people. And so that is what I would define my success as, is I'm going to continue to connect before collecting.
Interesting. I like that. That's a really cool saying. I'm going to steal that.
You can. You're
I'm going to steal that.
It's patent.
I'm patented by Danielle. Well, that's it for another episode of Cracking the Success Vault with Danielle Campo-McLeod.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out. Thanks for spending the morning with us. And we will have a second one because I'm interested to hear about this business in the future.
Sounds good.